What's up, everybody? So we're going to take a look at layers again for 2024. The last time I did a layers video was back in 2018, and that was version 0.6 point something in the LightBurn world, and the app has come quite a long way since then. So while layers fundamentally are the same, the UI has changed and there's been some basic additions, usability features, adding of tooling layers, just some general overall tweaks that I think warrant an updated video. So let's dive into it real quick here. My goal is to take Shrek here, and the reason we're using Shrek is because we're talking about layers.
Layers!
Ogres have layers. LightBurn has layers. Ogres have layers. LightBurn has layers.
Oh, you both have layers. Oh.
So the goal here is I'm going to actually create something along the lines of this. So if you look at this image I've got up on the screen here, I'm going to take what I've got traced and I'm going to fill in some areas with a fill, engraving, and then we're going to have interior lines that are simply traced, and then we're going to have an overall cutout. And this is going to be done on a piece of acrylic, and that piece of acrylic can be cut out and used as anything from an edge-lit sign to a simple ornament or whatever you want to do with it. But that's just that's what I'm using for demo purposes. So let's dig in. So I've got a fairly complicated Shrek tracing here, so there's a lot of little detail to this, a lot of interior lines, a lot of stuff going on. So let's dive in. The first thing I want to do is I actually want to grab this outer line here. So this outer line traces all the way around the image. This is going to be my final cut. And so what I want to do is I want to move this to a cut layer. So I'm going to choose, let's go layer 3. And so I'm going to take layer 3, and I'm actually going to rename this, and I'm going to say cut layer. And we're going to give that something in the neighborhood of, 8 millimeters a second at 80% one pass, and that should get me through a typical 1/8 inch 3 millimeter acrylic. It'll probably get me through much thicker than that, but hey, I'm not actually hooked up to my machine at the moment, so I'm doing this from memory without my little cheat sheets handy. So, alright, so what that did is it gave me the outline. So this will be the last cut. This will be the last operation that we do, is to cut the whole piece out. Alright, next up, I'm going to actually hide that cut layer. And so we'll look at the next set in. And I'm going to focus on my fill layers, because my fill layers are going to take a little massaging so that I can get it to look the way I want. So if we take a look, and we're going to take his vest. And we're going to start with his vest, because if we look at the actual image of Shrek, his vest is a dark color. His leggings are a dark color. His boots are a dark color. So I'm going to start here in this complicated area of the vest. Now if I just take the outline here and I move it to, let's say, layer 2, and I'm going to make layer 2 a fill layer. So this is going to be, we're going to call this a fill layer. And this is going to be a fill, and we're going to do this at 150 and, I don't know, 40, give or take. Again, guessing here, one pass. We've got overscan 2.5% in my case, which is happy path for my machine. Okay, so now if I do that and I take a look at the preview, what you're going to notice is that it filled the entire thing and didn't leave anything open for those traces there. So what I actually want to do is let me come in here. I'm going to grab all of this. So I've got my outer line. I'm going to grab, and I'm holding control as I do this so that it adds everything that I touch here. And that one, and that one. Okay, so that should give me, oh, missed one. And that one. Okay. So that gives me everything that I want. And I'm going to weld those together. So I'm just going to come over here and weld shapes, or you can do Control W. And now all my little ants are marching in the right direction. And if I, again, put that back on my fill layer, when I look at the preview, There you go. So you can see that it's going to fill in everything except for all of the scroll work and various decorations on his vest. So that's what I want. Alright, so I'm going to do that a couple times over here, and we're going to take all of these. Yep. That. Okay, and again, Control W to weld that, and we'll move that to layer 2. And just to look at my preview, sure enough, there you go. That's what I want. So, lather, rinse, and repeat for all the areas that I want dark. And if I remember right, let's look at our reference image. Our reference image shows, yep, okay, so his belt is going to be filled in. And we'll do the same thing with the weld here. So we're going to grab his leggings and these two marks here. We'll weld that. Move those to layer 2. His boots. 1, 2. Okay. And then the same over here. Grab that, and that. We're going to Control W to weld those. Move those to layer 2. All of this goes to layer 2. Okay. So, just as a point of reference, that's where we're at so far. We've got his vest. We got his belt, we got his leggings, his boots. I'm going to do a little bit of work on the eyes here and the mouth and the nose. Again, to kind of match my reference image that I'm working from here. This is one that I set up earlier just for testing purposes. Okay, so let's go do a little bit of work. Alright, so I think that just about does it for our fills. So let me turn the preview back off. And so everything that's left here, I want to just trace as interior lines. So I'm just going to highlight everything that's left. I'm going to move that to, let's say, layer 1. Layer 1, we're going to make a trace, and we're going to do this at, let's say, 60 millimeters a second at somewhere in the neighborhood of, let's call it 18%, 1 pass. Everything else stays the same. Okay. The only other thing I want to do is go back to my fill layer, and I want to... Okay, it's already set to fill shapes individually, which is what I want. If I did fill all shapes at once, it would introduce a lot of rapid travel. I don't want that. I want fill shapes individually. And then that should be it. So let's take a final look at the preview. And that looks about right. And so let me shrink this down so we can see what we're doing. Alright, and then if I play this, I've got it at 40 times speed. Okay, so my traversal movements are actually kept to a minimum, which is good. So that's what the fill individual shapes is going to do for me. It won't try to cut across the entire image. Scan line, scan line, scan line. It'll just do zip, 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 and it'll trace individual images. And let's see. All right, so the order that I have it in now, you'll notice that it actually did the cut outline first, and that's not what I want, because if I do that and it drops out of the outer piece of material, there's potential there that it can shift a little bit. So I want to move the cut layer down towards the bottom, and I can do that a couple ways. I can either drag and drop it, or so if I drag and drop, you can see I can move it around, or I can take it and use the arrow keys on the right here, and I can move it up and down. Or if I right click up here on top, I can actually default it to sort cuts last. So that'll actually put my cuts down at the very bottom. And then you can take a look at a couple of different, as you right click up here, enable, disable cut layers, invert cut layers. Again, sort cuts last is there. So there's a couple little shortcuts up there. But in this case now, if I look at preview again and play that, you can see it does my fills first, which is actually what I want. That's what I prefer. And then once it's done with the fills, I'm actually going to pause it and slow it down, because otherwise it would do my traces really fast. Okay, so now it's doing all my interior trace work. And then last but not least, it does the full outline cut. Alright, so we've got that in order. Now, the next thing I want to look at is I want to create a tool layer. So let's take Shrek, and we're just going to kind of move him off to the side real quick. Let's say I've got a work piece here, and this rectangle is going to represent a piece of acrylic that I'm going to be putting on my machine. And let me unlock the aspect ratio here, and I'm going to say that this piece of material is 200 wide and 200 high, so I've got a square workpiece. And what I want to do, by default it puts it on whatever layer I'm sitting on, but I want to take this and move it to a tool layer. So if I highlight it, and down here at the very end we've got T1 and T2, these are tool layers. They both behave the same. It just gives you two layers to work with for tooling, depending on how you want to do layouts. But what's interesting about the tool paths is you'll see that it actually turns off the output option. There is no option to turn on or off output. And so when I look at the preview, no matter what I do not see that outline. That is tooling layer only. Now, you can turn on and off framing. So framing, if you'll notice my, I've got my I've got my job origin set to top left down here. So my job origin without the framing on my tool layer goes to the top left of Shrek and Donkey. If I turn the frame on, it goes to the top left of my workpiece and would actually affect the entire everything on the screen. So that's kind of what I want, because when I set my laser up, I'm actually going to set it up referenced off of that top left corner of my workpiece. And so now the next thing I want to do is I want to take a Shrek and Donkey, and I'm actually going to group all of that so that I can move it all as one unit. And I'm going to select both pieces, and I'm going to center vertically, and I'm going to center horizontally. Okay. So now you'll notice that Donkey overflows my workpiece a little bit. So let me grab Shrek, and I'm going to shrink him down until he fits comfortably into the piece of stock that I am using. Alright, so there is a full representation of my laser work bed. I have got my piece of material on the bed, and this is all of the job that it's going to do. And once again, take a look at it. It looks about right. You don't see my tool layers. And that's it. So if I were connected to my machine, I would take this, hit start, and away we go. I don't think there's much else to cover. So ogres have layers. There you go. LightBurn has layers. Any questions, feel free. Make sure to drop over to the LightBurn homepage. On the homepage up top, you've got an option for support forum. You can go over there and post questions till your heart's content. There's lots of eager participants over there who are willing to share their knowledge. There's also a tutorials link. You can get to various tutorials. You can get to the LightBurn documentation from the website. I highly recommend spending some time with the documentation, looking through it, getting familiar with the software. There is so much it can do that is above and beyond anything that I've covered in this video. And it's going to be the first place people ask, did you go read the documentation? Because a lot of questions are answered there. So anyway, that's it for this one, and if you have any suggestions on tutorials that you'd like to see videos made from, drop a note in the comments below. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel so that the almighty YouTube algorithm does its thing and gets me noticed and gets content out for you guys. So until next time, talk to you later.